Hello or good evening, entrepreneurs, intrapreneurs, everybody on the call today. Welcome to our talk called Empowering Your Startups with Young Entrepreneurs. So I want to just shout out to our audience here of attendees. I invited our fellows. I see Javi's on the line. He's part of our CLC and today is his birthday. So it's recording, Javi, happy birthday. Welcome. And I see some of our 2020 fellows as well too. Nice. I see Bianca in the audience as well too. She's one of our speakers. I see Summer. Hey, Summer. And Ruben, who's a fellow that's going to be moving to San Antonio soon. So awesome. So welcome everybody. Thank y'all so much for being here. I really appreciate it. So I just want to introduce myself. Oops, I'm sorry. Robert is trying to get in still. Let me see. San Antonio. Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry, Robert is having trouble getting in.
It's the joys of digital conferencing, right?
One of our speakers was just having a little difficulty getting in, but he's coming here. No worries. Awesome. But my name is Sarah. I'm the new community director for San Antonio. And I just started with VFA over the summer. So for those of y'all that didn't know, hi, I'm here. What my role is as the community director, I really support fellows, I support our companies, all things VFA, and anytime we're on the calls, I'm always like, go San Antonio. So it's really exciting to be part of the team and just represent this awesome organization. So today we're gonna talk to Nick, to Robert, and to Bianca, our panelists here for this session. They are also company partners of VFA, so they've hired fellows. And just for context, for anybody that isn't aware of VFA, it's basically a 2-year fellowship program for top recent graduates that want to work in a startup and create jobs in American cities. So our fellows learn important startup and professional development skills. We do a month-long training in the summer called Training Camp, where they get to learn those skills, and then they get to apply for opportunities in cities like San Antonio to do a 2-year full-time salaried fellowship at one of our, within San Antonio or one of our other cities. So with that, I also want to mention a surprise. I know I had already mentioned that she was going to be here, but Bianca Rhodes, who is the one of the founders of Knight Aerospace, Bianca is a newest company partner, and she originally wasn't going to come and is here. So I just want to welcome her and say surprise. She's here joining us today. So with that, I want to just kick us off to Nick. Do you mind, Nick, telling us your name, give us your pronouns as well too? What is your role at your company, and how many how many fellows have you hired?
Yeah, absolutely. Can you all hear me okay before I dive in?
Oh.
Yes?
Is it?
Okay, great. Cool. So what's up, everybody? I am Nick Honiger. I am the general manager at Pasture Map, which is a regenerative grazing software application, and also an associate at Soilworks Natural Capital. So I do a lot of work in the regenerative agriculture space and trying to make the planet with using carbon that's good for the environment instead of bad for the environment. It's kind of our big focus and what I'm passionate about. And I'm trying to think, I've hired quite a few fellows in my day. I think, yes. I don't know the exact, maybe 5 or 6, 7 at this point. The reason it keeps going up, and I'm bad at counting, is I was a part of the group of I guess teams, if you will, that brought in the first 4 fellows ever to San Antonio. So we hired out of that class, and I've hired at least 1 fellow ever since. So I think, I don't know if I've hired the most in San Antonio, but I'm at least tied in terms of consistency because I've been bringing them on since the program started.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, Nick. And that was one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on this panel, because you've had so many different roles. So you've hired all kinds of different fellows, and right now with Soilworks, you have some fellows there as well too. So I just thought your story was really, really interesting. But yeah, I know we were supposed to have our other panelists, but it seems like they are stuck, but no worries, no worries. We will continue onward, and as they join, we'll just kind of jump in. I want to share with everybody who's attending. If you have questions, please feel free to just drop them in the chat. We will address them as they come. So just as we talk, just to give y'all a heads up, just feel free to ask questions, and we'll get to them. But awesome. Okay, well, that sounds good. Well, I know, Nick, like you mentioned earlier, you have worked within different organizations and have hired fellows. So I was really curious a little bit more about your VFA story, if you will.
Yeah.
So how'd you find out about the organization? I guess, yeah, and how have you been able to bring it to some of the places that you've taken your career journey?
Yeah, absolutely. So about maybe 8 years ago now, I was with an organization that is near and dear to my heart that I'm actually on the board of now, called Venture Lab. So it is a nonprofit. Highly recommend checking them out if you're interested in kind of supporting young students in entrepreneurship education. But we were very involved with kind of the early entrepreneurial kind of boom in San Antonio, for lack of a better word. So we were one of the first offices out of Geekdom before it was even in the new building, and kind of just very involved in that environment. So when VFA originally came over, I don't know if they partnered with Geekdom or what, but that was kind of a good spot for them to go and say, hey, we're new, we need startups. And we had an office there. So we hired Hatali LaJoya, who is, for a long time, was very infamous in the VFA world. And was just she is probably one of the smartest people I've ever met. And it's in law school now, and was super awesome. And we, and kind of since then, I've had a wonderful experience with hires. So that was kind of a very different project. So I was in the nonprofit space for a long time, which is where we brought in Hatali and Laura. And that was kind of my experience there, and then left and shifted roles kind of completely, and moved over to a company called Assembla, which did enterprise version control hosting, which is very different than entrepreneurial education. And hired Sarah Cantu and Matt Caponegro was on the team as well, and I think some others. And then eventually wound up, after Assembla sold, over at SolidWorks, which is where we've got Kevin and Parker now. And I think the reason I kind of go on that long tangent with all the kind of hires in between is I've gone from kind of a very nonprofit educational space to very kind of B2B SaaS, and kind of everywhere in between. And the thing that kind of I've loved and have found is that VFA has allowed us to connect with students that are really passionate about our kind of particular issues, be it kind of me needing a marketer and who wants to be a storyteller, or someone who's very passionate about education or kind of an environment, and allowing those students is the wrong word, but kind of new kind of adventurers to the workplace, to say, look, I've got probably more experience than your average kid out of school, or young adult out of school. So how do I leverage that? And I think it's allowed us to give them kind of projects that are bigger and kind of give them more responsibilities. And in turn, it means they're, a bigger part of the team and kind of take on more risk and responsibility, but they go through the training to do that through VFA. So it's this very interesting hybrid approach I don't know, it's worked selfishly super well for me, which is why we keep coming back, and hiring more people.
Yeah, I appreciate that story, Nick. And yeah, and like I said earlier, I think your background's really interesting because you have started with us when we were here in San Antonio, and you've hired so many different fellows with you in your roles. So I appreciate that. Thanks.
Yeah.
And I want to welcome, now that they are here, Bianca and Robert, our other panelists. I will let them introduce themselves. I'm not sure if the sound is working. Things are good, but if y'all can hear us, go ahead. Yes, Bianca, I see you unmuting yourself. Please introduce yourself. Tell us how many fellows you've hired and what you do at your organization.
Okay, so I am the CEO of Knight Aerospace, and we build products for cargo aircraft, to leverage cargo aircraft. So we build products, modules that look like VIP suites or hospital rooms that you can roll onto an aircraft, and then you could roll it off and use the aircraft for cargo like it's intended. So we make products that are very safe and very comfortable for people to be flown in cargo aircraft, because up to this point, we just sometimes have to throw soldiers or wounded people or patients or, you know, populations during disasters or anything on back of cargo aircrafts. And it's not a very pleasant environment since it was not intended for that. So that's what we do. I have, I'm new to VFA. I learned about it a year ago, probably. I was invited to a breakfast meeting that kind of introduced some of the fellows and some of the companies that were involved in VFA. And I thought it was the best thing I've ever heard of. And I immediately made contact with them and hired my chief of staff from VFA. And then just a couple months later, we were looking for an operations analyst, and we hired an operations analyst. So I have two, my first two, since I'm new, and they are just awesome. I mean, they are wonderful. They're amazing assets to our company. And I'm just excited. I hope that they're getting as much out of it as we are, because they're bringing a lot to the table.
Yes, and shout out to Anna and Lauren on the call here as
Oh, good.
attendees. Hey. Oh, awesome. There you go, Robert. Thank you so much for sharing, Bianca. I really appreciate your experience because you are a woman in aerospace, first of all, but also because you're new to the team. And I just think your experience is really interesting because it really shows the VFA network and how, I don't know, what happens when you can go to an event or attend a meeting or just meet somebody. At least that's what I've experienced in San Antonio. You never know what can happen in an event. But I do appreciate that, Bianca. Thank you. And now that Robert is on video and into the call, welcome, Robert, first of all. You made it. But I wanted
Yes,
to...
hello, everybody.
Oh, there you go.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yes,
Okay.
you sound
Okay,
perfect. I'm
good.
sorry. It could be my Wi-Fi. I was a little worried about that at the beginning.
Well, you'd think hopefully I don't have to hire a VFAer to help me figure out how to use Zoom. Sorry, everybody. I couldn't make the link work, but finally I'm in. So background on us. So I'm the CEO of a company here in San Antonio called Go Smart Solar. We have two VFA, they're post grads. So they're VFA alumni
Oh, yeah. Yes.
on our staff. And then we have one current 2020 VFA fellow. So I very quickly say that we're 3 for 3 when it comes to VFA. It's been really a great experience for us in multiple ways. Yeah, so happy to, and so the 3 folks that we have, the roles that they perform, we have Andre and Raymond are both software engineers, and they're building out the entire software platform that our business runs on and that communicates with our utility customers. And before Andre showed up, and he's 2 years into the job now, we had absolutely nothing. So it's completely built by Andre. And then most recently, we've added Raymond about 3 months ago. So that's our software team. It's entirely made up of a couple of VFA superstars. And then we have Rosalie Royce, who was also a 2018 VFA fellow, who's been with us about 1.5 years. And she runs all of our product management, which is sort of loosely in our world describing, sort of how does the business communicate with the software team and vice versa. She also does a lot of really wonderful research and sort of just a lot of other projects that we can't find a home for. They sort of stick to Rosalie and they just get done. And she's a rock star as well. So happy to be here.
Yes, awesome. Well, yeah, thank you for that intro, Robert. And I do appreciate you joining. I know I was really worried about the technical issues, but
no, we're good. Yeah,
we're here. That's all that matters. But awesome. Right. Yeah, I appreciate you, and as well as you, Nick and Bianca, for joining us and giving us your time and just sharing your experience. But yeah, so for those who have joined, because I've noticed a few other attendees, we're just making this an open conversation. So if y'all have any questions, please feel free to chat them. And we'll be able to answer them here on the spot too. So you all also drive the conversation. So just feel free to drop a question in as well. But awesome. I want to get back to it and talk a little bit more about each of your organizations, so I can learn a little bit more about kind of your background, your story. Something that is of interest to our fellows, a lot of them ask about the company culture and kind of what is it like, you know, to work in this organization. So I'd love to hear from each of y'all just a little bit more. I know, Nick, since you've changed culture, so you probably have a lot of experience and can share a little bit of that with us. Do you want to add a little bit?
I can jump in. I guess cultures have shifted for me a bit. I mean, obviously the nonprofit world is vastly different than a kind of venture capital fund. But I think in terms of cultures that I look for and I think resonate with fellows and who we hire, regardless of where I'm at, is I'm very mission driven in just my kind of work. And I think that most startups are. I would say that there's something you're trying to change. It takes a special kind of breed of crazy to go say, hey, you know, what if I worked, 80 hours a week to try and make this crazy thing happen, and be that, changing the education system or kind of making green tech a reality for ranchers. I think one thing in the culture we typically have is we're very excited about what we're doing. So we look for people who are passionate about that mission and vision. And I think that's what, at least in my experience, really helps bring teams together, right? It's like, hey, we're all kind of bringing this cool opinion and idea to the table of, hey, if in my most kind of current role, it's how are we going to help, ranchers solve the kind of carbon and climate crisis going on right now. So we look for people who are really excited about either the environment or have ranching backgrounds, and we build our culture out from that. And that's allowed us to target people who have said, hey, look, I've got a history of, farming in my family, or these crazy stories. And I think the goal and what we try and do, especially when we're hiring from VFA, is let's bring in people that have that same mission and vision as we do. So that way there's an instant kind of icebreaker, if you will, when you get on the team. We know there's something in common that we can talk about, that we can kind of bond over, and we're all working toward that goal. And I think that's helped us, create a more kind of fun atmosphere, if you will. And then all the typical generic startup cliches that we love, like iced coffee on tap and cool offices downtown. I think we have that as well. But I think the better part of all of that is that we're, doing some cool stuff to help out the planet.
Yeah, for sure. I appreciate that perspective. I know it's really interesting for those that are relocating to Texas and working for a company that's in like that agricultural field. So I think that's really interesting as well too. But awesome. I appreciate that context. And I know you have a lot of different company culture experience with all your
I've bounced around a lot, for better or for worse, I guess.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, it is appreciated, and for fellows that are looking for that sort of mentorship aspect, I mean, it could be a good fit to work with you or mentor with you. But awesome. Okay. Well, yeah. Now that we can see you, Bianca, welcome.
Yeah, thanks.
Virtually.
Finally fix that.
Yeah, I know. Technology issues. We'll get it down one day. But yeah, that just goes to show how sustainable tech is, right? Awesome. Well, I know, I remember earlier you didn't have a whole lot of time. So in the interest of time, I'd love to just kind of get your thoughts. I know within the aerospace industry, it's a little bit different, right? As far as like company culture, I know you're in manufacturing, so that's obviously very hands-on, very different. Can you talk a little bit more about your company culture, maybe some of the things that you've looked for in fellows when you were looking for Anna and for Lauren?
So our company has been around for 30 years, but my group purchased the legacy company 3 years ago. And so for the first 25 years, it was a very small family-owned business. And I will tell you that in 25 years, they had one woman who worked in the company.
Oh, wow.
And so the last 3 years have been really, really different. We are now proud to say we have 11 women working in the company. And so that was obviously one of the goals, is just to diversify. We also, it was, although it's been fantastic that there was a group of people that had been here most of the company's history, we were able to add to that. And this is one of the reasons I love this program, is because we were able to add to that younger, fresher eyes, that would just come in and look at everything differently and balance out some of us older people. And some of the legacy ideas that we're walking around, which have been great, but you really need that kind of diversity in thought, to make it all work right. So the big emphasis the last few years, we've moved locations, we've doubled the workforce, and I'm expecting us to scale much bigger, here in the short run. So actually, one of my VFA fellows, who is my chief of staff, that is her primary job, is to make sure that the culture that we want to have here happens, and that we are always on top of it, and that we're, doing the right things to support that. So, because of where we are in our growth and stuff, there's several things that are really important. We really value people who are committed and passionate about what we do. Like, if you're just here for a paycheck, it's not going to work. You have to be a little bit more entrepreneurial than that. You want to come in here and do what it takes to get it all done. And all of us, including myself, especially myself, will do whatever. I have been known to clean the bathrooms. I mean, whatever. And so that's Anna's primary job. And, the culture, everybody that we talk to, everybody that we interview, everybody that we hire has to understand those things. And we don't think that's a fit. We just stop right there. We also use our culture, or our cultural values, or our core values, to evaluate everybody on an ongoing basis, and to give feedback on how people are doing within our company. That becomes like the most important thing, because I believe that you give this many hours to your vocation every day. You need to enjoy what you're doing. You need to enjoy who you're working with, and it's up to me and the management team to create that environment so that everybody can go home at the end of the day and say, that was fun. I want to do this again tomorrow.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I agree. And I think that's so exciting that you've, in feels like such a short time, have been able to move and grow the organization that much. And that's really exciting that some of our fellows can be part of that with you. Awesome. Well, yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you. And to you, Robert, I know I want to make it more of a conversation. I guess it's hard on Zoom because we can't all sit at a table, right, and just like talk over each other over like a bowl of chips and salsa or something. Can't wait to do that one day. But Robert, tell me a little bit more about your team culture, because I know you've had a few fellows with you through the years, but I know like the company has grown as well too. So maybe how some of that has changed from the beginning to where you are now.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. So, boy, I sometimes get a little locked up on the word culture just because maybe it's used a lot or it's hard to define. But let me just talk and see if it sheds light. So first of all, the first thing that comes to mind is we're a small team. Like, we have 9 full-time employees. Mm-hmm. So, nobody, like, everyone takes the trash out. Everyone will make the coffee. And so from that perspective, we try to have a very flat organization. So we don't have a whole lot of chain of command or sort of layers of management. Mm-hmm. And so on one hand, it's like we'll all answer the phone if there's a customer who needs help. Now that said, 2 out of the 3 VFAers that we've hired are very specialists, very specialized skills. So they are software developers. So as we've grown, we're starting to get some of that specialization, which I think, is natural, right? As a company goes from 5 employees to 9, you start to have roles that emerge. But I still think that, nobody is too important not to, go get on a rooftop and troubleshoot some solar that needs to be fixed. As an example of that, we had a hailstorm, a very small hailstorm, but nevertheless, it did some damage to some of our solar carports recently. And our field operations manager noticed that we had in our monitoring system, which our VFA fellows helped to manage, that we had 24 panels that were not performing. And so it was myself and Jason Pittman, the co-founders of the company, mm-hmm. along with Charlie, our field ops guy, who swapped out all of those panels one afternoon about 3 weeks ago. And by the way, if anyone's interested in some hail damaged solar panels, we've got 24 of them. We're thinking about making them into tables or somehow turning them into furniture, and because you can recycle them, but it's almost too expensive to just ship them to like Dallas or wherever to get them recycled. So anyway, there's not one of us that would say, well, that's not my job. So no one's too important for any job, even if it's getting up on a roof and just schlepping heavy things from one point A to point B. So that's part of our culture. And I think it keeps us close to what we do. I think the other culture when it comes the element of culture when it comes to attracting VFAers is it's kind of easy for us. We're a solar company. We are hastening the transition to renewable energy as best we can. So it's really easy to get, in fact, a lot of times with a VFA match program, we have potential fellows reaching out to us saying, I've read your website, I really want to come join you. And so I feel like we've got it easy from that perspective because our mission is very much kind of front and center in terms of who we are. So that doesn't mean culture's a layup for us. I think that means some of the mission stuff is very easy. And then we still have to work to make sure we've got a healthy culture on sort of all the other stuff in terms of how we take care of our people, letting people bring their full selves to work. Any question is a fair question. A lot of that kind of standard stuff that is important when you have certainly when you have a small company and as you're trying to grow.
Yes, and I appreciate that. I agree with you. I think mission alignment would have been a better way to phrase it because you're right. It can, I don't want the word like culture to get lost. I guess that's how, we've been
Well,
trained
yeah.
to talk
I
about
mean,
it.
I don't have a better word for you. I think culture is, it's not your fault. It's just, it can mean a lot of things. And I kind of went on a rambling story there. So it's very important. But yeah, it's important to us. So, we want to make sure people are excited to be, I consider, in today's working environment, it's a privilege to have somebody spend so much time of their personal time working on working with us, right? So it needs to be interesting. We've got to keep it interesting. We've got to keep people engaged, and certainly having a very clear mission makes that easier, right?
Definitely. No, I agree.
Yeah.
I totally agree with you. And yeah, you're right. Solar is pretty popular, and I know yes, I agree with everything. I don't want to like fumble with my words, but yes. But
It's hot. We say it's hot. Solar's hot.
yeah, solar's hot. I mean, it literally is.
Yeah,
That's great.
That's right. Yeah, sorry. That was terrible. Bad.
It was good. No, I thought of some cheesy stuff that I didn't say that now I'm thinking like, okay, maybe I should have just done it to like make it cheesy.
Yeah, why
I
not?
didn't see anyone claim the solar panels in the chat, so it looks like they're still up for grabs.
Got
I
it.
would love to try to
Not
make
surprised.
it, but I don't know. Yeah, I have to see what they look like. But awesome. I know. Okay, so something that y'all have all mentioned was the mission alignment, and I know that's very much what we do here at VFA and why we recruit our fellows, and we look for those that are very aligned to and passionate about what they're going to be doing and where they're going to be. So I appreciate y'all all touching on that, although I didn't say mission alignment, but thank y'all for that. Now I do want to ask, because this is something I was thinking about as I'm, kind of newer to the role and like navigating my way through this. I was wondering, how do y'all explain the VFA program? I mentioned at the beginning, like this is what it is, the 2-year fellowship. We work with startups and company partners like that. Or innovative companies, in your case, Bianca, not necessarily a startup, but that growing phase. But how have y'all explained it to people that you have come across that are interested in hiring young talent? Or how do you explain the program and share about your fellow experiences?
I guess I'll go quickly. I mean, I tend to say the VFA represents an opportunity for a company like ours to attract extremely highly talented folks. You need to recognize you may not have them for a decade, right? I mean, recognize that one day they may go off and do their own thing, but nevertheless, so I think it's a great chance to say, in our case, we said, listen, we need a whole bunch of stuff built. If we can find, software platform built. And we were fortunate to find Andre, who was really enthusiastic about saying, great, I'm going to be able to look back on this after 2 or 3 or 4 years and say, I did all of that, or I did the first 80% of it before other people came along. So we had it easy because we had nowhere to go but up, and we were able to attract really great talent that just happens to be a good fit with us being a startup. And that applies to Andre, Rosalie, and Raymond. So I don't know if that answers your question, but it's sort of like a chance to get really great talent. You're not going to keep it forever, but I think that's worth it.
Yeah, to help you grow. Yeah, no, I appreciate the perspective. What about you, Bianca? I know you have to leave soon, so I'd love to hear.
Yeah, I mean, very similar. I say, really great, very smart kids from really top schools. And the exchange is you give them an experience that they normally would not have coming out of school. So just, they're entrepreneurial. They want to be exposed to a lot of stuff early in their careers. And it's just an amazing win-win. I just think it's such a great partnership because we obviously get that kind of talent at a really reasonable rate comparatively, and then in exchange for that, they get this amazing experience. So, most people go, now wait a minute, this sounds too good to be true. Explain that to me again. So, I think it's a really appealing win-win situation. Very easy to explain.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, well that's good. I guess it can be hard to explain to some people, but I just saw we got a question in from Luis Martinez. Hey, Luis. His question is, what have VFA fellows brought your company that is different than other recent grads that you may have hired? And y'all can just jump in and answer his question.
I can jump in there. I think one thing that I would say is different is typically, at least in my experience, there's some sort of project or like capstone. I would almost kind of put it in that bucket that is almost guaranteed through the PFA program. And I think that's just due to the nature of the applicants they select, is that typically if we find someone kind of a fresh graduate, maybe they did really well in school and they had like a part-time job and that's all wonderful. But if someone from VFA is normally those two experiences plus some like very hyper-specific thing in the industry that I'm hiring in. So it's like, oh, not only did I like have a job and like did really well in school and was at the top of my class, I also started this company on the side that didn't work out, but here's all the things I learned. And I think it's not necessarily that every single kind of fresh graduate doesn't have that experience, but I would say if I'm kind of in hiring mode, 9 times out of 10, someone from VFA is going to check all those boxes just because they do all the selection process for me. So it's really me being lazy, I guess, is the truthful way to put it. But there's a whole bunch of vetting that goes on for those candidates that typically kind of bring out these like really cool opportunities that these kind of young, kind of fresh, kind of new employees to the world have already done, which is great. And I think so. It's that experience that they bring with them that I think is very unique a lot of the times.
Yeah, I'd like to jump in and say something because I'm going to have to jump off for another meeting. But one of the things that I think distinguishes the VFA student from the other students is that too many times I find other students are just looking to finish learning, finish school, and just start a job. And I think the entrepreneurial bent and the fact that they're in this program are saying, I want to keep learning. I'm entrepreneurial. So I think that element adds a whole different dimension in the level of enthusiasm and engagement that comes with these students. And I've been so impressed by that. I think that brings a really nice dynamic to the table that you just don't find all the time with the next just regular graduate.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. Awesome.
Okay. Well, it was nice visiting with you guys. I apologize that I have to jump off, but I have an investor in town that I need to go meet. So I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Bye, Bianca.
Take care.
Yeah. Good luck.
Thanks.
Yes. Awesome. Well, yeah, I appreciate that. Did you want to add anything, Robert? Or
I think I agree with Nick. The vetting process, the boot camp, the VFA boot camp that is typically done in Detroit, really prepare and really just the selection process. I mean, it's tough to get through all of the filters that the VFA selection team does, so that at the end of the line, I know it's less than a 20% success rate.
mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, it's just really high IQ talent, first of all. It can't be understated, I would say. Bright people. And then I think they're ready. I think the VFA team especially through boot camp, prepares them for a lot of the stuff that saves us time and effort. So that's what makes it just feel really different. And it saves time. I think they hit the ground running faster.
Yeah.
I hate the term adding value because it sounds kind of corporate, but frankly, they can sort of add value quickly. So far in my sort of 3 data points, we're seeing that. So yeah, it does feel easy.
Easy.
Yeah.
Yeah, the 2 super small teams on the call are like, yeah, it's super simple to, yeah. I mean, it helps a lot. I cannot understate how much. I mean, that's a big value because Robert, you said you've got 9. I think we've got maybe 6 right now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I mean, every interview takes the entire team, like in terms of bandwidth sometimes. So having someone who's gone through, way more than we could ever do internally is just helpful.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, and you're right. It is very vigorous. I've joined the selection day committee or not the committee, I'm sorry. Just I've been volunteering for selection days for our next 2021 class, and I'm like, man, I wonder if I would have made it through if I were doing this. Like, it is intense. It is, and especially since it's virtual now, it's really interesting. But awesome. So, for the sake of time, I noticed we have a lot of fellows that are here attending and listening. So I would love to just get some of them are in San Antonio. Some are going to be relocating soon. I know things have been challenging times right now, so we're all trying to just be flexible and live with our lives right now. But I would love to just have you all direct maybe some advice or tips or something they should get excited about for San Antonio, especially for those that haven't visited here yet or aren't here yet, or even any local secrets. Like, would love to just have y'all share a little bit of information from you all to some of the fellows that are on this call.
That's directed at Nick and myself.
Yes. Yeah, if y'all have any advice or any local tips.
Won't be able to help much on where to hang out. I'll let the class of 2020 pull that off. Happily step aside on that. But I will say, listen, San Antonio is clearly, in my opinion, and I'm not originally from San Antonio. I've lived here 20 plus years, but I'm not originally from here. It's one of these places where clearly our best days are ahead of us. And so that hopefully is invigorating and exciting for somebody who's more than likely moving from somewhere else to San Antonio to sort of kick off their VFA experience. I think having such a strong class this year, I think it's the biggest class VFA's ever had. It just bodes well that I think the momentum is building. New employers are showing up because they're hearing about how great this program is. Mm-hmm. I like the fact that a bigger class, I think, also sort of drops a given fellow into a social network that they can, clearly fit in with. These people have been through a boot camp together. They can sort of, they can talk about their shared experiences at different employers, have folks to hang out with over the weekend, et cetera. I don't know. But I think the biggest thing is that I'm really sort of bullish on San Antonio, and I really truly feel like our best days are clearly ahead of us, as opposed to, I don't even know. I don't want to diss any other city, but there are other places where it may not feel that way, and here it does. So that's pretty fun.
Yeah, I would echo that pretty heavily. I think my go-to pitch whenever I'm trying to sell fellows or whoever on the city is that if you want to go work and like somewhere where the city's already kind of done, like a Bay Area or Austin, you can, and there's kind of an environment there, and it's like, but that's what it's going to be, and you're not going to add anything new. It's just you're going to go into an ecosystem that you know what it is, you know what you're getting into. I think what's really cool about San Antonio, because I've been here maybe 8 or 9 years, is that a lot of the stuff that you want to see in the city, you're going to help build and put there, which I think is really inspiring, and it probably honestly attracts the same crowd that attracts VFA. It's like, hey, if you're going to come to San Antonio, we're not done yet. Like, there's a ton of stuff on the horizon. And I think Lorenzo Gomez might have tossed this around for you, but City on the Rise gets tossed out a lot. I really agree with that. I think it's just, if you want to come somewhere where you can not only be in the startup scene, but actually help build it, San Antonio is the place to be. I mean, even some of the restaurants downtown are from VFA, and the program's only been here for like 4 years. So, I mean, there's a tremendous amount of impact that people can have almost instantly in the city, which is it's very unique to San Antonio, I would say.
Right.
Yeah,
It's almost like joining a startup, that being San Antonio, versus joining a mature company like San Francisco.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that's just you may not leave much of an impact if it's crowded already, right? So a real chance to make a huge difference.
Yeah. I agree, and y'all are a testament because y'all are literally building the startup scene in San Antonio right now as we speak. Awesome. Okay. Well, yeah, I really appreciate that. I didn't see. Oh, the hot hangout spot. Yeah, that's true. The hot hangout spot is Pinch Boyhouse.
Yeah.
Yeah. I posted my.
Hey, I'll tell a quick story about Pinch. So when we were VFA newbies, we heard about the program. We were interviewing, and the advice we got was, hey, if you're getting close to a candidate, fly him or her down, and meet face to face. And so that ended up being Andre. Andre Gomes was our first VFA fellow. We found out just in conversation with him that he was a foodie. So of course we took him to Pinch, which is it's got VFA pedigree, of course. The food was delicious. We also knew Andre really liked it. And so then it was like, okay, great. Well, Andre's going to get on a plane and fly back to Boston College. And we're thinking about making him a job offer. I sure hope he takes it, but maybe he won't. So what we did was, instead of just sending him a blanket offer letter in the form of an email, which we did, but we also went to Pinch. We brought the whole team, and then we bought an extra sandwich and put it down in front of an empty chair. And then we filmed a video, and it's like, hey, Andre, we miss you. We're all here. Here's your sandwich. And Sean Wen came out and said, hey, Andre, what's up? You know, good to see you. I think they had played like some pickup hoops. And so we sort of shot this like goofy, but, authentic, let's say, video. And I think what we were trying to convey is, we really want you here. And this is just a sort of a silly example of like, we've got a spot at the table for you. And somehow it worked. And Pinch is literally almost like our home away from home. It's right around the corner from the building, and we have team meetings there, team meals there. And I love the fact that the food is great, and we're supporting another VFA business. So anyway, it worked, thankfully.
Wow, that's awesome. I'm sure a lot of people have Pinch stories. I remember I used to work with a fellow alum named Ryan Cleary, and I remember he told me that when Sean was like experimenting with all the sauces, and they were trying all their experiments, and oh my gosh, some were good, but some were bad. But,
Nice.
I love it. I was like, man, I wish I was there. Like, sounds fun.
Yeah, bet.
Well, that's awesome. Well, I know we're getting wrapped up here. I didn't see any other questions or anything like that from the chat, so I'll put it out there one more time. If we have any last minute questions before we end in 3 minutes, does anybody have any questions or anything they want to share? Nothing? Okay, going once, going twice. Okay, I gave them the chance. Awesome. Well, I really appreciate y'all's time so much. Thank you so much for joining us, Robert. Thank you so much, Nick. I appreciate all that y'all do for our fellows and for VFA. I know that y'all, I know that y'all are there for them, and just appreciate that. Awesome.
It's a win-win, huge win-win for us. Happy to be here.
Yeah.
Yep, happy to help.
Yeah, awesome. Well, yeah, thank y'all so much for joining. All of the attendees, thank y'all, fellows. I will see y'all here in a few more minutes. Everybody else, have a good night. Happy almost Halloween. Happy startup week, month. Thank y'all so much. I appreciate it.
Okay, sure. Thank you.
Take care. Thanks again.